Hello and a warm welcome to the Pulse of Culture. Today we'll explore the remarkable relationship between two of the most influential scientific minds of the 20th century, Marie Skłodowska-Curie and Albert Einstein. We'll do so through their letters. While their scientific achievements are well known, their correspondence reveals their thoughts and shines light on their friendship. To discuss the connection between these two giants of science, I have a very special guest with me today. Professor Hanoch Gutfreund, former president of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and current director of the Einstein Center. He is also Hebrew University's appointee responsible for Albert Einstein's intellectual property. Good afternoon, Professor. Delighted to have you with us.
Delighted to be here.
So when Einstein, at the end of his life, he was asked who were his favorite scientists, he only mentioned two names, Dutch physicist Hendrik Lorentz.
Hendrik Anton Lorentz.
And Marie Curie, of course.
Marie Skłodowska-Curie.
So what was the nature of the relationship?
First of all, it was based on deep, intimate friendship, on mutual understanding, on mutual admiration. The correspondence between these two giants of science is very unique. It's a correspondence between two great scientists, but it is not about science. It is about their worldviews, their activities, their commitments outside of science. Now, we know that Albert Einstein was an individual who expressed his views on every issue that was on the agenda of mankind. And his worldviews were guided by a certain responsibility for the benefit of mankind. He understood that science affects every aspect of our life. But he also understood that that carries certain responsibility. How science is used for the benefit of mankind and not misused. And this confrontation between the two aspects of his activities, science and everything outside of science, is an integral part of Albert Einstein's personality. Albert Einstein was a pioneer in confronting this tension between these two aspects, not only as a great scientist, but as a great philosopher and a caring humanist. And now, Madame Curie, Skłodowska-Curie, there is something similar, not so well known, not as appreciated as with Einstein. He is a superstar, known by everybody. But I think that Einstein detected in her personality something similar. A famous scientist who is not spoiled by her care. A woman scientist who, like himself, cares as a humanist that science will be used for the benefit of mankind. I believe that these two parallels are something that brought them together. You see, the collection of letters, I read all the letters before, but seeing them compiled in one book, this book, which was produced here, accompanied by a few introductory and conclusive texts. This book conveys a message of their totality. There is a meaning. Every letter by itself stands alone. It's interesting to read. But looking at them together, they convey a certain message, the message that I tried to point out at the beginning, which is common to them.
But it also shows a deep bond, right, between the two. And when they met in Brussels, right, Marie Skłodowska-Curie was already an accomplished scientist, whereas Einstein was just beginning his academic career, right? Unfortunately, there was this social scandal. Marie Curie became a victim of tabloids. And we have an excerpt here from the letter that Einstein wrote to her after the conference, just to sort of console her and give her strength.
Do not laugh at me for writing you without having anything sensible to say, but I am so enraged by the base manner in which the public is presently daring to concern itself with you that I absolutely must give vent to this feeling. If the rabble continues to occupy itself with you, then simply don't read that hogwash, but rather leave it to the reptile for whom it has been fabricated.
These are strong words, but in support of his friend. But I was wondering if at the beginning, perhaps, of their friendship, Marie Skłodowska-Curie wasn't more of a mentor to him.
Well, she was a little older. He certainly admired her. When they met, he was 32 years old, the youngest participant in that very prestigious conference that brought all the prominent physicists, the leaders of that science, together. He was then at a stage where he was making a transition from a less known status as a clerk in the patent office in Bern to the forefront of the physical arena. But coming back to that letter, he encourages Marie Curie Skłodowska to ignore this public opinion. And that is something, and that is maybe less known, that's something very typical for Einstein throughout his life. He was very original in his views, and he did not care what others think. You see, when he was 72 years old, there was a party and the reporters asked him to pose something typical of him for 72 years. And then he stuck his tongue out.
The famous
and we
photo,
have
yes.
that very beautiful picture.
Absolutely.
And what does it symbolize? I don't care about the word. His hair was always in disarray. And he encouraged Marie Curie to stick her tongue out
Right.
at the whole world. And the French society also.
Absolutely.
It was cynical.
But Marie Skłodowska-Curie was not the only person with whom he exchanged letters. He also corresponded with Sigmund Freud, for instance, right? So you went through all of these letters, and I wanted to ask you if you were to pick one message, perhaps the most important one, what would that be?
One message of both of them.
Of Einstein in his letters to others.
One important message is, it is one message, but it is conveyed in numerous letters. It's a message of a caring humanist to the welfare of mankind. And I think that Curie Skłodowska, after her great discoveries, particularly also during the World War, with her actions, activities, energy, time devoted, is exactly to the same goal.
So tell me about the collection that you have, the intellectual property of Einstein and the collection.
We have, of course, Einstein was one of the founders of the Hebrew University. And before his death, in his testament, he bequeathed to the Hebrew University all his wealth. But this was not financial wealth, it was intellectual wealth. And having done that, he made the Hebrew University the eternal home of his intellectual legacy. And there are about 85,000 documents, some manuscripts, handwritten manuscripts of his great scientific articles. But it is not only science. I mean, what is outside of science is not less important, because Einstein is an individual, maybe more than anybody else, scientist or non-scientist, who expressed his views on every issue that was on the agenda of mankind in the first half of the 20th century. And now think what happened in that time. 2 world wars, disintegration of empires. The issue of human rights appeared on the agenda of mankind as a moral, but also as a political issue. There was a question, nuclear weapons appeared, the issue of disarmament. He supported some control of the spread of nuclear weapons. He is responsible, together with Bertrand Russell, for the Russell Manifesto warning mankind and scientists to work against the spread of nuclear weapons. There was a point where he did not trust first the League of Nations and then the United Nations as very effective to prevent wars in the future. And that is when he joined and was one of the leaders of a world government movement, that there should be one government. Sounds very naive today. Einstein was not a naive person, but he had his arguments. This was a whole philosophy. I wonder sometimes if Curie Skłodowska would have lived 20 years longer. Where would she stand on these dilemmas that Einstein faced in the 1940s after the explosions in Hiroshima and Nagasaki? She would probably be, together with Einstein, a signatory on the Einstein-Russell Manifesto.
Professor, you are here in Poland also to visit the grave of your friend Marian Turski. And he famously said, "Thou shalt not be indifferent in face of injustice and persecution."
This, in his view, should have been the 11th command.
That's right. And so do you think that there is this common thread, common theme between what Einstein stood for and what Turski said, and is it still current today?
There is something, I don't know if Marian Turski had Einstein or Curie Skłodowska in mind. What motivated him to formulate that is what he went through, and the fear that something like that may happen again. And the only way to prevent something like that to happen again, that the immediate signs of in that direction should cause action, understanding, certainly not indifference. This is something which is very common to people with a very strong moral standards, understanding and responsibility, like Einstein and Madame Curie.
And I think that's a beautiful conclusion to our talk. Professor Hanoch Gutfreund, thank you so much for being with us. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Pulse of Culture. Please stay tuned for more here on TV World, of course.